Hi everyone, I'm Magnus with CompactDrums.com. Today I'm going to show you an easy method to wrap a drum shell with drum wrap. There are four primary methods used for wrapping drums, and the one we're going to focus on today is the one that we call method number 4 on the drum wrap instructions page on CompactDrums.com. Method number 4 is by far the most common method used, both by drum manufacturers and by hobbyists and do-it-yourselfers like me, because it's the easiest and most convenient method. Does it have any drawbacks? Yeah. Some people claim that when you don't adhere the wrap all the way around the shell with adhesive, that it's going to have a slight choking or muffling effect on the sound. Logically, this should be true. To be honest with you, I don't hear a difference with my ears, and I've tried both methods side by side. With my ears, I cannot detect the difference. I do believe, however, that a skilled audio engineer can bring out a detectable difference from a recording. So if you're going to use your drums in a very, very professional manner and you're going to record with them and you want to be able to bring out the absolute most out of it, then maybe this isn't the method to go with. For the rest of us that are not so professional, I think this is by far the preferred method, and like I said, it is the most common method even among drum manufacturers. The wrap we're going to be using is from Wallapus.com. Wallapus makes a whole range of interesting drum wraps. It's actually the drum wrap brand that I use most in my own projects on CompactDrums.com and other projects as well. I like Wallapus personally because, well, the price is right, they're very affordable, and they have a really neat selection, both of some very unusual styles of wrap, but also traditional, more tasteful designs. For fun today, we're going to use one of their examples of some neither tasteful nor traditional, but definitely very, very unique. It looks like this. Pretty cool, huh? Another thing I really like about Wallapus is, even though it's fairly thick, it's 20 mils plus, and a mil is a thousandth of an inch, which means it's about the thickness of a credit card, maybe a wee bit thicker than that. Another thing I like about Wallapus, apart from the price and the wacky selection, is when we did a bunch of tests with different drum wrap samples, Wallapus drum wrap came up on top, both in scratch resistance and gouge resistance. And even with that kind of toughness and durability, it's very flexible and pliable, so it's extremely easy to work with, and it's definitely not brittle. It's very kink resistant. What I've done here is, so when you buy drum wrap from Wallapus.com, it comes a little bit oversized in order to accommodate for all the different installation methods. And one method involves trimming after installing the wrap onto the drum. And this is actually recommended if you are going to adhere it with adhesive, because it gives you just a little bit more margin for error. Because we're wrapping with the more simple method today, I've already gone ahead and trimmed the wrap down to size, and it's trimmed down so that there's a bit of, it's called cutback on both sides, and it's probably the way you found the wrap that you took off already. It doesn't matter at all that there's a little bit of exposed shell along the bearing edges, because that's going to be covered by the flesh of the drum head. So, like I said, I cut it down. I did that with regular scissors. You can cut this stuff with regular scissors. It takes a little bit of grunt, but it's perfectly doable, and you can get a pretty clean cut. I just drew a line with a straight edge and then cut it down with scissors. The other thing I did ahead of making this video is I attached a strip of, well, it's called an adhesive strip. It's really a fancy name for double-sided tape, but it's a little more sturdy double-sided tape than what you find what you use for example, mounting photos in a photo album. This particular one is from the local home improvement center, and it's really intended for installing carpet. Very sturdy stuff, very, very strong. It comes in actually twice the thickness that you're looking at here, or twice the width that you're looking at here. cut it in half because you don't need any more than this, and it would just make it more cumbersome to work with to have any thicker a strip than what we have right here. I think that's all I need to mention right now. If we were to adhere this on, we'd actually scuff the backside a little bit with fine sandpaper, but there's no need for that. Another thing about method number 4, it's completely reversible. So if you change your mind after a couple of years and you want to re-wrap your drums again, this wrap comes right off without any damage to the drum shell because it only adheres to itself at the overlap, nowhere else. Obviously, to have as small an impact as possible from any possible choking or muffling, we want to wrap this wrap as tight around the shell as possible. For help, because we only have 2 hands, we're going to use 4 of these handy little spring clamps. If you don't have any of these, you can actually use clothes pegs like laundry pegs. If you have some that have a fairly strong grip, the really loosest ones probably won't work for this, and you'll see why in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine where on the shell we're going to have our overlap, where the wrap is going to begin and where it's going to end. Looking at a bare shell like this, getting the shell bare is a whole different story. Mostly you'll find that the wrap on a drum kit is only adhered at the leading and bearing edge, but most manufacturers actually adhere also to the drum shell, not only to the wrap itself. And you can see the evidence here of where this particular wrap from this drum was originally adhered. For me to determine where the seam is going to be, I start with taking a look at it and figuring out by finding these 2 holes, which are of course for the butt plate, because this is a snare drum, and because they're closer to the bottom, I now know that this is the bottom, and on the opposite side I have the 2 holes for the snare strainer. You can also look for the snare bed, but it's a lot easier to find the holes. So once we know that the strainer is here, we know that a lot of drummers like to have the strainer straight out to the left side if they're right-handed, and some drummers like the strainer facing themselves, and pretty much anywhere in between there. We want to put the seam so that it faces the drummer, not the audience. We always make it pretty for the audience, not necessarily for the drummer, because he's so busy drumming, he's not gonna notice whether it's pretty right there or not. And to be honest, if we do this right, you're not even going to see the seam when it's done. You're going to have to look for it to find it, but we'll get to that. So, assuming that you put the strainer over here, you'd probably want the seam right here. Assuming that you have the strainer here, you'd probably want the seam right here. So I want the seam somewhere in this quadrant. And for that purpose, I'm simply going to settle for where the manufacturer had the seam to begin with. And that way I don't have to make a little X, which I would otherwise. If I was going to put it somewhere else on the shell, I'd make a little X. We do usually try to position the seam so that it ends up under a lug, like right under a pair of lug holes. You might think that this is so that the lug helps keep the wrap in place, and I guess it could be to some degree, but it really shouldn't be necessary. It's more to hide the seam, but because having a visual distraction like that, really, even though the seam is hard to detect if you do a clean, nice job of wrapping, having a lug straight over the seam hides it even better. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put it right around that seam. So the first thing I do here is I just start playing with it a little bit. That's another nice thing with this method is you can play around with it for quite a while before you're not at the point of no return until you pull that the liner off of the double-sided tape and actually put the seam together. Not like with if you're using contact cement. If you've ever used it, you know that as soon as the surfaces make contact, that's it. There is no point of there is no returning. Here we can experiment to our heart's content until we get tired of it and decide, okay, let's go for it. So what I do is I just hold it up, kind of hold it like this, and line it up, just using one of the edges as a visual guide. I'm sorry, I can't show it to you guys while I do it, because then I won't be able to get it right. And then I place the clamps on that I showed you guys before in 2 spots. And I don't have to try too hard, because we can do this as many times as we want. Like, just keep trying and trying. And then from that as a starting point, I just use my thumbs like this to wrap it firmly all the way around. And in this case, I didn't get it quite straight. It's off by about 2 millimeters at the end. Quite possibly when you unwrapped your drum shell, it was off by this much as well, and it's not uncommon that manufacturers are quite pleased with this amount of straightness. But because this is our own drum, and we can do this for as long as we want, I'm going to actually do it again and see if I can't get a little bit straighter. Oh, while I'm at it, I'm going to see that the overlap ends up exactly where I want it, and it doesn't quite actually. I want to move it up just a little bit. So, get the clamps off. Move the wrap up a wee little bit, and just do the same thing again. I'm going to show you a different method of getting it perfectly straight in a minute, but I'll just show you this one, how we start one more time, as if we hadn't done it, just to go over it one more time. So I just use the edge as a visual aid and wrap it for like a quarter of the shell and see if it looks straight to me. And that does look straight to me, so I'm going to place the 2 clamps on the edges again. Like that. And then once again, I'll go all the way around the shell using my thumbs to keep it stretched. When I do a wider drum, say a tom or even a bass drum, I also use my knees, so I keep hold the shell firmly against my knee so that the knee is keeping it taut in the center and my thumbs out on the edges. But with a snare drum, just using our thumbs is more than adequate. So we simply go all the way around the shell, rubbing our thumbs in the direction as we go to make sure that we get it nice and tight. And when I return to the beginning, it's a wee bit straighter than the first time. We're off by about 1 millimeter now. I'm going to show you how to fix that. But for now, we will just simply hold it really tight and lock it down with a couple of clamps on this side as well. The clamps are a few inches from the actual seam because we need a little bit of play. Now, if you really want to fix that last millimeter of play, what you do is you reposition this end a little bit so that they actually line up perfectly, which means that somewhere around this shell now, there is a little bit of an air cushion along. So now I just do what I did before, but going the other way. And that wee little bit of air cushion that's only on one side is now going to get pushed all the way to the beginning where the other 2 clamps are. So when I've made it all the way around, all I have to do is, I don't know if it'll even show up on the video because it's literally just a millimeter, but it's just lifted just a wee bit on this side. What I do is I hold that side down firm and I lift that clamp and pull that little bit of lift out and pop the clamp down again on the other side. And I do the same thing with the other clamp as well. So now it should be about as straight as it's ever going to get. It is actually extremely straight. There's a discrepancy of 0.5 millimeter over on this side, but not on the other side, so that just means that when I trimmed the wrap down, I had a discrepancy of half a millimeter across the length of the wrap. Not bad for just using a straight edge and scissors. So once I get that far, I'm actually going to go one more time just to make sure, starting from the same direction I started the very first pass, and do the exact same thing again. This is just to make sure that it's really firmly wrapped around the shell, that there's no little piece of lift, like a little bridge anywhere, where there's an air pocket between the shell and the wrap. So again, with my thumbs, I follow along the entire shell like this. And because I'm pushing down hard and turning and trying to do many things at once, my voice gets all weird like this. I'll try to return to my regular normal voice as soon as this step is over with. And wouldn't you know it, there actually is a bit of an air pocket getting moved here still, which means that I'm very grateful that I'm using this method of wrapping, because if I had used the contact cement method, that would have been permanent at this point. Okay, we're back to here again. My hands are a little sore. I don't know if you guys have ever played guitar, but you know how sometimes after playing a lot, the hand gets really tender? I get that same feeling after doing this. I'm no guitar player by any means, but I tried to learn how to play guitar one time and failed miserably, just like with drums. I'm much better at rapping than playing. Because I had a bit of an air pocket even on that last pass, I'm going to do one more pass just to make sure. Like I said, the advantage of method number 4 is we can do this till the cows come home, if you have cows. If you don't, then just do it anyway. Yeah, that's it. There was no air pocket this last time, which to me tells me that I've done a pretty good job so far. So at least from these 2 clamps all the way around the shell to these 2 clamps, we don't have any air pockets. The only area we need to focus on right now is this right here. And the next step is very, very simple. We're just going to remove the liner from our double adhesive tape and wrap this up, as they say. So, sorry you guys can't see if I do it like that. Let's see if I can tilt this down. I like to rest it on the floor when I do this step. Yeah, that's perfect. So, I use my left hand to hold these 2 taut together once I get the liner off. But just so you can see how I like get that grip with my left hand, it works really, really well. So we lift up this end, grab the liner, and pull it off like that, put it to the side, and then that grip that I was showing you before, so now the left hand is really making sure that it's tight all the way. And then I use my other hand to start applying the adhesive strip, the double-sided tape. And I just do it right in the center like that, and then move out to the one side, and then I move out to the other side, give it a good push like this with my thumbs, remove the 4 clamps, and there you have it. A very nicely wrapped snare drum shell. Well, whether it's nice or not, that might have to do with how your personal taste is, but it's nicely wrapped. All that's left is to install your hardware again. Now with Wallopus drum wrap, you can choose how you want to make the holes. You can use a drill and drill from the inside, or you can use an X-Acto knife and cut around from the outside. Either way works good. Sometimes I use the drill, sometimes I use the X-Acto knife. With the X-Acto knife, of course, you want to be a little bit careful. You don't want to accidentally cut into the new wrap job you just did. It's very, very durable, and you probably won't be able to cut through it, and you probably won't even be able to see it, but you'll know that you cut into it, so it's better not to. I would highly avoid it. And that's it. It's all wrapped up. For any other instructions, like I said, on our website, CompactDrums.com, there are 4 different methods of wrapping drums covered. And on Wallopus.com, you can see a whole bunch of cool, unique drum wrap that's just as wacky as this one, as well as quite the selection of much more tasteful and classy drum wrap. Wood grains, pearls, sparkles, you name it, they have it. Thank you very much for paying attention. I hope this video is of help to you, and have fun wrapping your drum kit.